Okay, let's talk a little bit more about penetration testing, but this time from the perspective of the textbook. So, what they discuss is how penetration testing, and as the view you can see um, on figure 1.9, understand that NIST divides penetration testing into four phases. We've talked about this: planning, discovery, attack, taking the results of your attack and perhaps launching additional discoveries, which then allow you to do additional attacks, doing that until there's no more new discoveries. And then once you've finalized your final attack phase, do your reporting. So when you're planning a penetration test, this is the administrative groundwork. We talked about the rules of engagement, designing that rules of engagement playbook on how everything is going to be performed, the timing, when will the test take place, will staff be informed, can it be timed to have as little impact on business operations as possible, is that a consideration? Scope, what's the agreed upon scope of the penetration test? In other words, what is it going to actually test? Within that, are there any systems, networks, personnel, business processes that are off limits to the testers? It needs to be clearly defined. Authorization. Who is the entity that's actually authorizing the penetration test to take place? Have they signed off on conducting the test? What should testers do if they're confronted by an employee or other individual who notices their suspicious activity? So understand that these are all issues, all points that need to be agreed upon prior to the implementation of the penetration test. In other words, before you begin the test, and it needs to be signed off on. Conducting discovery is the when the attackers actually conduct reconnaissance. Now, this might be from an external perspective, maybe from an internal perspective, but it's about gathering as much information as possible about the targeted network, the system, the users, the application, the physical infrastructure, whatever it may be. This might include reviewing publicly available material, MX lookups, Google searches, um, doing discovery of who is information, performing port scans of systems, using network vulnerability scanners, using web application testers to probe for vulnerabilities, as well as other types of information gathering. When it comes to actually executing the penetration test, this is where we break down our discovery and attack phase into some more detailed areas. The NIST process that can be found in publication 800-115 Technical Guide to Information Security Testing and Assessment shows we do the attacker or the attacking team does the discovery phase, and then moving into the attack phase, it's actually broken into four steps: gaining access, once enough data has been gathered in the discovery phase to make an informed attempt to access the target. With that, we then move on to escalating privileges. This this is the goal here is to gain complete system or control of the system. If that is accomplished, we move on to system browsing, and this is the information gathering process that begins again to identify mechanisms to gain additional access to systems, or access to additional systems would be a better way to place it. And then finally, installing penetration testing tools. This may give you greater insight. Then, with that added information, gained information, or access, You then rerun the gaining access first step in an attempt to further and more deeply access the target. Once the penetration test has been completed, the testers, as we talked about in our previous last lecture, should prepare a detailed report communicating exactly the steps that they took, what they were able to access, what they were able to achieve, the vulnerabilities that were identified. All of this are valuable security planning tools. This is how we go about mitigating our vulnerabilities, because in these reports they're going to describe the actual vulnerabilities. We can turn around, we could actually perform a penetration test as part of training, as part of exercises. Many times we'll call this Wargames, maybe a tabletop exercise, but they're simulated environments rather than an actual live penetration test. And the goal is to improve the skills of security professionals on both sides, because it gives you a greater understanding, greater exposure to the tools and the techniques that are going to be used by attackers as if they do launch an attack against your systems. For the most part, you're going to designate three teams: red team, blue team, and white team. The red team is the attacker. They'll use the reconnaissance exploitation tools in an attempt to gain access to the protected network. So this would be similar to the role of the penetration test team. The blue team is the defenders. They're responsible for securing the targeted environment and attempting, or if successful, keeping the red team out. The white team, these are our referees. This is the same team that sets the rules of engagement. They serve as referees, they arbitrate disputes between teams, they maintain the technical environment and monitor the results. These can be very effective ways to educate security professionals on modern attack and defense tactics and methods. That covers the textbook explanation for penetration testing. Thank you.